Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, don't forget to subscribe so you can enjoy all the amazing English stories and improve your English every day. Let's learn together and grow together. Now, let's begin today's story.
My name is Maria, and I live in a small town in Spain with my family. And ever since I was a teenager, I had a big dream in my heart to go to New York City and learn how to speak English very well, so I could meet new people, travel the world, and find a better job in the future. Every day after school, I would watch videos of people speaking English, and I always imagined myself walking in the streets of New York, speaking with confidence and smiling while talking to people from different countries and cultures. One day, I decided that it was time to make my dream come true. So I worked very hard, saved my money for many months, and applied for a language school in New York that promised to help me improve my English step by step. When I received the email saying I was accepted, I felt so happy and emotional that I cried a little because I knew my life was about to change forever and I was ready for the adventure, even if I was a little nervous about leaving my home. I packed my bags with clothes, books, and a photo of my family, and I said goodbye to my mother, father, and little brother, who gave me warm hugs and told me to believe in myself and never give up, no matter what happens in New York. As the plane took off and I looked at the sky through the window, I whispered to myself, "Maria, this is the beginning of your new life, and you are strong enough to succeed." When I arrived at the airport in New York, everything felt so big, so fast, and so different from my quiet town in Spain, and I suddenly realized that this was not a dream anymore. It was real, and I was truly here in a city full of lights, noise, and possibilities. I felt a little scared because I didn't know anyone, and I was worried that people might not understand my English, but I remembered what my mother told me before I left. "Maria, be brave, take one step at a time, and don't be afraid to ask for help." I took a deep breath, grabbed my suitcase, and walked outside, where I saw yellow taxis, tall buildings, and people speaking so quickly in English that it almost sounded like music I didn't understand yet. I got into a taxi and gave the driver the address of the apartment I had rented near the language school, and even though my voice was shaking a little, he smiled and said, "Welcome to New York," which made me feel a little more comfortable. As we drove through the city, I looked out the window and saw things I had only seen in movies. Big parks, street performers, food trucks, and people from all over the world walking together on the same sidewalks. When we arrived at the apartment, I thanked the driver, entered the building, took the elevator to the third floor, and opened the door to a small but cozy room that would be my home for the next few months. I stood in the middle of the room, looked around at the simple furniture and empty walls, and I smiled to myself, knowing that this was the place where my journey would truly begin. That night, I couldn't sleep very well because I was thinking about my first day at school. But I told myself, "Maria, you came here to grow, to learn, and to become the best version of yourself. Everything will be okay." The next morning, I woke up very early because I was both excited and nervous about my first day at the English language school, and I wanted to arrive on time, make a good impression, and not get lost on the way. I got dressed in my favorite outfit, ate a quick breakfast with bread and tea, and left the apartment with my small bag, which had a notebook, a pen, and a small Spanish-English dictionary that my brother gave me before I left. As I walked through the streets of New York, I looked at all the people hurrying to work, students with backpacks, and street vendors selling coffee and bagels, and I felt like I was part of a big, moving story that was just beginning for me. When I arrived at the school, I saw a big sign that said, "Welcome to International Language Academy." And I felt a small smile on my face, even though my heart was beating fast. I entered the building, walked to the front desk, and said slowly, "Hello, my name is Maria. Today is my first day." and the woman at the desk smiled kindly and gave me a folder with my name and a small map of the school. In the classroom, I met students from many different countries: Japan, Brazil, Italy, Korea, and France. And we all looked at each other with curious eyes, knowing we were here for the same reason: to learn English and follow our dreams. The teacher, a woman named Sarah, was very friendly and patient, and she spoke slowly using simple words so we could understand, and that made me feel safe and supported in the new environment. We played a game to introduce ourselves, and when it was my turn, I said, "My name is Maria. I am from Spain, and I want to learn English to speak with the world." And everyone clapped, which made me feel proud and brave. After class, I walked back to my apartment with new energy in my heart, and I thought, I did it. I spoke in English, I met new people, and this is just the beginning. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Day 1, scary but beautiful. I believe I can do this." After a few days, I started to get used to my new life in New York, and I created a routine that helped me feel more confident and organized, even though everything around me was still so new and different. Every morning, I woke up at 7 o'clock, opened the window to feel the cool city air, and said to myself that today is another chance to learn, to speak, and to become stronger. Before making a small breakfast and getting ready for school, I walked the same streets each day, and little by little, they began to feel more familiar, like old friends, and I started to notice small things I didn't see before, like the man who always sold flowers near the corner, or the little dog in the bakery next to my school. In class, I listened carefully to the teacher, took notes, and tried to answer questions, even if my English wasn't perfect, because I knew that every small effort would help me improve day by day. During break time, I talked with other students, and even though we all made mistakes, we laughed, helped each other, and shared stories about our countries, which made me feel like I belonged to an international family. In the evenings, I often went to the library to read simple English books and practice vocabulary, and I also watched English videos with subtitles to train my ears and learn how people really talk in everyday life. One day, I walked into a coffee shop and ordered in English without thinking too much, and when the barista gave me my drink with a smile, I realized how far I had already come, even if it had only been a short time. That night, I looked at myself in the mirror and said, "Maria, you are not the same girl who arrived scared and quiet. You are learning, growing, and becoming someone new." As the weeks passed, I started to notice the little victories in my journey, moments that may have looked small to others, but to me they were proof that I was becoming more confident and more comfortable speaking English. One morning, I helped a tourist on the street who was looking for a subway station, and even though I used simple words, I was able to give directions clearly. And when the tourist said, "Thank you so much," I felt proud and happy. At school, I began to understand more words without checking the dictionary, and when the teacher asked questions, I raised my hand more often, even if I made mistakes, because I knew now that mistakes were part of learning, not something to fear. One evening, I joined a conversation club at the library, where people met every week just to talk in English, and I sat with strangers and talked about food, music, and travel, and I felt surprised at how much I could say and understand. I also started writing short stories in English in my notebook, using the new vocabulary I learned in class, and when my teacher read one of them and said, "This is beautiful, Maria," I felt tears in my eyes because it meant so much to me. Sometimes I still felt tired or lonely, and I missed my family in Spain, but each time I felt like giving up, I remembered why I came here, and I reminded myself, you are not alone. You are doing something brave. You are building your future. In those quiet moments at night, when the city lights shined through my window and the sound of cars filled the air, I looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you, New York, for teaching me not just English, but how to believe in myself. One of the most beautiful parts of my journey in New York was meeting people who became more than classmates or neighbors. They became true friends who felt like family far away from home. In my English class, I grew close to a girl from Brazil named Anna, a boy from Korea named Jin, and a woman from Turkey named Elif. And we often stayed after class to practice together, laugh, and share our dreams. We spoke slowly, made many mistakes, and sometimes even used signs with our hands when we didn't know the words, but we never judged each other, and that made our connection strong and honest. One weekend, we decided to visit Central Park together, and we walked for hours, took photos, talked about our countries, and even practiced English by describing everything we saw: the trees, the people, the food trucks, and the sky. Anna said, "This park reminds me of my home in Rio." And I smiled because I understood how it feels to carry a little piece of your country in your heart, no matter where you are. After that day, we started spending more time together, studying, cooking simple meals, and watching English movies with popcorn. And those moments made me feel less lonely and more at home in this big, busy city. One evening, when we were sitting on the rooftop of our building, watching the lights of the city and the airplanes in the sky, Jin said, "We are all far from home, but we have each other now." And we all nodded in silence because it was true. I never imagined that learning English in New York would also teach me something so important. Friendship has no borders, no perfect grammar, and no need for perfect words, just open hearts. Not every day in New York was easy or full of smiles. Some days were hard, and there were moments when I felt lost, tired, and unsure of myself, like the day I had to speak in front of the whole class for the first time. That morning, our teacher asked us to prepare a short presentation about our hometowns, and when she said, "Maria, you will go first," my heart started to beat so fast that I thought everyone could hear it. Even though I had practiced many times the night before, when I stood in front of the class with my small notes in my shaking hands, I forgot some words, made grammar mistakes, and felt like I was failing in front of everyone. I looked at the faces of my classmates and felt embarrassed, and a voice inside my head whispered, "You are not good enough. Your English is not strong. You should sit down." But then something amazing happened. Anna smiled at me, Jin gave me a small thumbs up, and Elif whispered softly, "You can do it." And in that moment, I took a deep breath, smiled back, and continued speaking with all the courage I had. When I finished, the teacher said, "That was wonderful, Maria. You spoke with heart, and that's what matters most." And the class clapped for me, not because I was perfect, but because I didn't give up. After class, I walked alone for a while, thinking about what had happened, and I realized something very important. Success is not about being perfect. It's about being brave enough to try, even when you're scared. That night, I wrote in my journal, "Today was hard, but I am proud. I spoke, I stood, I didn't run away, and tomorrow I will speak again." One of the best lessons I learned during my time in New York was that English is not just something you learn in a classroom. It's everywhere, in every street, every store, every conversation, and every moment of daily life. After a few months of studying, I started to challenge myself by doing more things alone in English, like going to the grocery store, ordering food at restaurants, asking for directions in the subway, or talking to people in cafes. At first, I felt nervous because sometimes I didn't understand everything people said, especially when they spoke fast or used slang. But I learned to ask them politely, "Can you please repeat that more slowly?" And most people were kind and helpful. One day, I visited a museum by myself and took the audio tour in English. And even though I didn't understand every word, I listened carefully, took notes, and felt proud that I was able to follow along and enjoy it in a language that was once so difficult for me. Another time, I went to a bookstore and had a long conversation with the cashier about English books for beginners, and she recommended one that became my favorite because it was simple but full of emotion and real life. Even things like listening to music, reading street signs, or watching people talk at the park became lessons for me because I realized that every moment was an opportunity to grow, even when I didn't plan for it. I started to carry a small notebook in my bag where I wrote down new words I heard during the day, and every night I would read them, look up their meanings, and write my own sentences using them. Little by little, English became a part of my life, not just a subject I studied, but a new voice inside me, a bridge to a bigger world, and a way to express myself with more freedom and confidence. After many months of learning, growing, and living in New York, I decided to write a long letter to my family in Spain, to tell them everything I had experienced and to show them how much I had changed inside and out. I sat at my small desk near the window, opened my notebook, and began to write in Spanish first, because I wanted to speak from my heart. And then I decided to translate the letter into English to show myself how far I had come. In the letter, I told my mother that I remembered her words every day. Be brave, my daughter. And that those words had helped me many times when I felt scared or tired or alone in the big city. I told my father that I missed his jokes and his quiet strength, and I promised him that I was working hard, learning more every day, and doing my best to become someone he could be proud of. I told my little brother that I remembered his smile and the way he gave me his small dictionary, and that I still carried it in my bag like a lucky charm, using it whenever I found a word I didn't know. As I wrote, I cried a little, not because I was sad, but because I felt so thankful for everything. The lessons, the friendships, the challenges, and the way New York had helped me grow into someone new. I ended the letter by writing, I am not the same Maria who left home. I speak English now. I understand new things. I am stronger, wiser, and I believe in myself more than ever before. After sending the letter, I sat quietly with a cup of tea, watching the sky turn orange above the tall buildings, and I smiled, knowing that my family would be proud, not just because I spoke English now, but because I had followed my dream. The day before my course ended, I walked through the streets of New York slowly, looking at everything with new eyes, the taxis, the people, the lights, because now this city felt like a part of me, not just a place on a map. At school, our teacher gave each of us a certificate and said, "This is not the end. This is the beginning of a new chapter. You are ready to keep learning, to keep growing, and to keep shining." I looked at my certificate and I remembered all the difficult moments, all the words I didn't know, all the times I wanted to give up, but I didn't. I stayed, I tried, I learned, and now I could speak English with confidence and joy. That evening, Anna, Jin, Elif, and I had a small party at the rooftop to celebrate, and we talked about our futures, our dreams, and the countries we would return to, and we promised to stay friends forever, no matter where life would take us. I stood quietly for a moment and looked at the stars above New York, and I thought about the girl I used to be, the girl who was afraid, who spoke with hesitation, who didn't believe she was strong enough. And I smiled because I had become someone new. The next morning, I packed my bags again, just like I had done months ago in Spain. But this time, I was not the same Maria. I was braver, wiser, and full of hope, ready for the next adventure. As I walked to the airport, I whispered, "Thank you, New York. You gave me more than English. You gave me confidence, courage, and a new life. And now wherever I go, I carry those lessons with me, not just in my head, but in my heart.